August 22, 1962. Havana, Cuba. The morning light filters through the shutters of a third-floor apartment on Cal Obispo, casting prison bar shadows across the bedroom where Maria Castellanos lies awake beside her husband. James Porter sleeps peacefully, his breathing steady, one arm draped across her waist. To anyone observing them, they are simply another married couple in revolutionary Havana. But Maria's eyes are fixed on the ceiling, her heart hammering against her ribs because, tucked beneath their mattress, wrapped in oilcloth and hidden where she discovered it 3 hours earlier, is a Minox camera containing photographs that could start a war. Her husband, the man she has loved for 3 years, the American embassy attaché who courted her with poetry and promises, is a spy. And Maria Castellanos, intelligence officer with Cuba's Dirección General de Inteligencia, now faces an impossible choice that will echo through history. The sun rises over Havana, indifferent to the fact that in this modest apartment, a woman's heart is being torn in two, and the fate of millions may hang in the balance. James stirs beside her. Maria closes her eyes and pretends to sleep, buying herself a few more precious moments before the performance must begin. But her mind is racing, replaying every moment of the past 3 years, searching for the truth beneath the lies, trying to understand when love became cover, when intimacy became espionage, when their marriage became a weapon. The day has begun and Maria Castellanos must decide who she is, a wife or an officer, a lover or a revolutionary, a woman or a soldier. The clock is ticking. Castro's counterintelligence apparatus is closing in. And somewhere in the Caribbean, Soviet ships are carrying missiles that could incinerate American cities. In this apartment, in this moment, history holds its breath. 3 years earlier, Maria Castellanos had been a different woman. Fresh from her training with the DGI, assigned to monitor foreign nationals in Havana's diplomatic quarter, she carried herself with the rigid certainty of a true believer. The revolution had given her purpose, transformed her from the daughter of a sugar plantation accountant into an instrument of Cuba's new order. She was 24 years old, spoke flawless English learned from her mother who had worked for American tourists before the revolution, and possessed the kind of dark-eyed beauty that made men underestimate her intelligence. This was useful in her work. She had been taught to weaponize everything, even her appearance. Her assignment was straightforward: monitor the American embassy personnel, identify potential intelligence targets, report on their movements and associations. The Americans were everywhere in those days, even after the revolution, still clinging to their diminished influence, their embassy a fortress of capitalist defiance in the heart of socialist Havana. Maria watched them with contempt and fascination, these representatives of the empire that had turned her island into a playground and a brothel for decades. Then she met James Porter at a reception for international journalists in September 1959. He was 28, a cultural attaché with sandy hair and an easy smile, and he approached her not with the predatory confidence of most American men, but with genuine curiosity. He asked about her work at the Ministry of Culture, a cover position that gave her access to diplomatic events. He spoke passable Spanish with an endearing accent. He quoted José Martí, Cuba's national hero, and seemed genuinely interested in understanding the revolution rather than dismissing it. Maria's training screamed warnings. This was textbook recruitment behavior. He was too perfect, too interested, too charming. But James Porter seemed different. Over the following months, they encountered each other at various functions. He always sought her out, always asked thoughtful questions, always treated her as an intellectual equal rather than a conquest. He brought her books, American novels she couldn't easily obtain, and they discussed literature and politics with a passion that felt authentic. Maria reported every interaction to her handlers at the DGI. They encouraged the contact. An American attaché showing interest in a Cuban intelligence officer operating under cultural cover was an opportunity. Perhaps he could be turned, fed disinformation, used as a channel, or perhaps he was attempting the same with her. Either way, Maria was authorized to continue the relationship under close supervision. But something unexpected happened. Maria Castellanos began to fall in love. It started with small moments. The way James listened when she spoke about her childhood, her father's struggles, her mother's dreams. The way he laughed at her jokes, genuine and unguarded. The evening he took her to the Malecon seawall at sunset, and they sat watching the waves crash against the stone. And he told her about growing up in Virginia, about his own father's death, about feeling like an outsider in the very system he represented. His vulnerability seemed real. His loneliness seemed to mirror her own. When he kissed her for the first time, Maria felt something crack open inside her chest, something that had been locked away since her training began. For the first time since joining the DGI, she felt like a woman rather than an operative. She reported the kiss to her handlers. They approved. Deepened the relationship, they instructed. An emotional connection could be exploited. Maria told herself she was following orders. But late at night, alone in her small apartment, she admitted the truth. She wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted to believe that in the midst of revolution and counter-revolution, espionage and ideology, two people could simply find each other and build something real. James proposed in the spring of 1960 on a beach outside Havana where the sand was white and the water impossibly blue. He was being reassigned to Washington, he told her, but he couldn't imagine leaving without her. Would she marry him? Would she come to America? Maria's heart soared and shattered simultaneously. She couldn't leave Cuba. Her work, her loyalty, her entire identity was bound to the revolution. But the thought of losing James felt like drowning. She told him the truth, or part of it. She worked for the government in a sensitive position. She couldn't leave. If he wanted to be with her, he would have to stay in Havana. James Porter didn't hesitate. He requested a transfer to remain at the embassy. He married Maria Castellanos in a small ceremony in June 1960, with a handful of friends and the quiet observation of intelligence services from both nations. They moved into the apartment on Cal Obispo, and for 3 years, Maria lived in a state of cautious happiness. She continued her work with the DGI, now with the added advantage of access to her husband's world. She reported on his colleagues, his conversations, the mood within the embassy as relations between Cuba and America deteriorated. But she also protected him, carefully editing her reports to portray him as a minor functionary with no intelligence value, a man genuinely in love who posed no threat. James seemed content. He worked his diplomatic duties, came home to their apartment, cooked meals with her, made love to her with a tenderness that felt impossible to fake. They built a life together, a small island of intimacy in a sea of geopolitical chaos. Maria began to believe that perhaps she could have both, her loyalty to Cuba and her love for James, her duty and her happiness. Perhaps the world wasn't as binary as her training suggested. Perhaps love could transcend ideology. But on the night of August 21st, 1962, that illusion shattered. Maria had been working late at DGI headquarters, reviewing intelligence reports about increased Soviet activity in Cuba. The Americans suspected something, their surveillance flights over the island intensifying. The DGI was on high alert, watching for American intelligence operations. When Maria returned home after midnight, James was already asleep, or appeared to be. She moved quietly through their apartment, exhausted, wanting only to collapse beside him. But something caught her eye. A drawer in James's desk, usually locked, was slightly ajar. Maria's training kicked in automatically. She approached the desk, her heart beginning to race. Inside the drawer, hidden beneath papers, she found a false bottom, and beneath that, wrapped in oilcloth, a Minox camera. Maria's hands trembled as she opened the camera's film compartment. Exposed film, recently used. She knew what this meant, knew it with the certainty of her training and the horror of her heart. James Porter was not a cultural attaché. He was a CIA officer, and their marriage, their love, their 3 years together had been his cover. Maria stood in the darkness of their apartment, the camera in her hands, and felt her world collapse, every moment replayed through a new lens. His interest in her work, his questions about her colleagues, his convenient transfers that kept him in Havana even as tensions escalated, the way he sometimes disappeared for hours with vague explanations. How could she have been so blind? How could she have let love override her training? But even as rage and betrayal flooded through her, another voice whispered in her mind. 3 years. 3 years of intimacy, of shared meals and whispered conversations, of his body beside hers in the darkness. Could all of that have been performance? Could he have faked the way he looked at her, the way he held her when she cried about her father's illness, the way he laughed at her terrible jokes? Maria carefully replaced the camera exactly as she found it. She closed the drawer, leaving it slightly ajar as it had been. She went to their bedroom and lay down beside her husband, her mind racing, her heart breaking, knowing that when morning came, she would have to decide. Report him to the DGI, and James would be arrested, interrogated, likely executed as a spy. Warn him, and she would be betraying everything she believed in, potentially compromising operations critical to Cuba's security. Or do nothing and watch as events unfolded, a coward unable to choose between love and loyalty. Maria lay awake through the night, listening to James breathe, wondering if he was really asleep or if he too was pretending, both of them locked in a performance that had consumed their lives. When dawn broke on August 22nd, she still had no answer, only the terrible certainty that today everything would change. James wakes at 7 as always. He stretches, kisses Maria's forehead and rises to start the coffee. The domestic routine is so practiced it could be choreography. Maria watches him from the bed, studying every movement for signs of deception or truth. He moves through their kitchen with familiar ease, humming softly. Is this the behavior of a spy who knows his cover is blown, or a man genuinely content in his morning ritual? Maria rises and joins him, wrapping a robe around herself. The apartment is small but comfortable, filled with the accumulated artifacts of their life together. Books in English and Spanish, photographs from their trips to the countryside, a painting Maria bought from a street artist near the cathedral. Every object now feels like evidence in a trial she's conducting in her mind. James pours coffee, black for him, with sugar for her, exactly as she likes it. This small act of care feels like a knife in her chest. He smiles at her. Good morning, beautiful. How did you sleep? Maria forces herself to smile back. Fine, you, like a rock. James sips his coffee, glances at the newspaper he picked up yesterday. The headlines scream about American aggression, imperialist threats. The propaganda is thick these days, but beneath it, Maria knows, lies genuine danger. Soviet missiles are arriving in Cuba. American intelligence is desperately trying to confirm it, and her husband has been photographing the installations. She needs to know what he knows, needs to understand the scope of his operation before deciding what to do. So Maria begins to probe carefully, using the skills she learned in training. Casual conversation as interrogation. She mentions that she heard at work about increased American surveillance flights. James nods, seemingly unconcerned. The embassy is worried. Tensions are high. Does he think there will be war? James sets down his coffee, meets her eyes. I hope not. War would destroy everything, including us. The words hang in the air between them. Is this a genuine sentiment or a calculated response? Maria cannot tell anymore. She presses further. What do you hear at the embassy? Are the Americans planning something? James hesitates, just a fraction of a second, but Maria catches it. Her training has made her exquisitely sensitive to such micro-expressions. He shrugs. You know I can't discuss embassy business, even with you. Security protocols. It's the answer he's always given, and Maria has always accepted it as reasonable. But now it sounds like deflection, like a spy protecting his sources and methods. She decides to take a risk. I worry about you, James. If things get worse between our countries, your position here could become dangerous. Maybe you should request a transfer, return to America where it's safe. James reaches across the table and takes her hand. His touch is warm, familiar. I'm not leaving you, Maria. Whatever happens, we face it together. We promised each other that. The sincerity in his voice is perfect. Too perfect. Maria withdraws her hand gently, stands to refill her coffee. Her mind is racing. She needs more information. Needs to know if anyone else at the DGI suspects James. Needs to understand the timeline of Castro's counterintelligence operations. She excuses herself to dress for work, leaving James at the table. In their bedroom, she makes a decision. She will go to DGI headquarters and carefully inquire about current operations targeting American intelligence. She will assess the threat level, and based on what she learns, she will decide James's fate before the day ends. But as Maria buttons her blouse, she catches sight of their wedding photograph on the dresser. She and James on the steps of the courthouse, smiling, his arm around her waist. She remembers that day with painful clarity. The joy she felt, the hope. Was any of it real? She touches the photograph, her finger tracing James's face. Then she straightens her shoulders, composes her expression, and returns to the kitchen. James is washing the coffee cups. He turns to her, smiles. Have a good day at work. I love you. Maria feels the words like a physical blow. She manages to say, I love you too. And she does. God help her, she does. Even now, even knowing what he is, some part of her still loves James Porter, which makes what she has to do infinitely harder. Maria leaves the apartment and walks through the morning streets of Havana toward DGI headquarters. The city is alive with revolutionary fervor, posters of Fidel and Che on every corner, slogans about resistance and sovereignty. Maria has always found strength in this collective purpose, but today she feels utterly alone. At headquarters, she navigates the bureaucratic maze to reach her supervisor, Colonel Raul Mendez, a hardened veteran of the revolution who has mentored her since her recruitment. She finds him in his office, reviewing files, cigarette smoke curling toward the ceiling. Maria, he greets her. You look troubled. She sits across from him, choosing her words carefully. I wanted to inquire about current operations targeting American intelligence personnel. Are there any active investigations I should be aware of? Mendez studies her through the smoke. Why do you ask? Maria has prepared her cover story. My position gives me access to diplomatic circles. I want to ensure I'm not inadvertently compromising any ongoing operations. Mendez nods slowly. There are always operations, Maria. The Americans are constantly probing our defenses, trying to gather intelligence on Soviet activities here. We're watching several suspected CIA officers at the embassy. He pauses, his eyes sharpening. Including some we believe are using personal relationships as cover. Maria's blood runs cold, but she keeps her expression neutral. Anyone specific I should be aware of? Mendez taps ash from his cigarette. We're building cases. Nothing I can discuss in detail yet, but within the next few days we'll be making arrests. Several American intelligence officers operating under diplomatic cover will be exposed and expelled. Or worse, the room seems to tilt. Maria grips the arms of her chair. Do you have names? Not yet, but soon. Mendez leans forward. Maria, I've always trusted your loyalty. Your marriage to the American was approved because we believed it gave us valuable access. Has Porter provided any useful intelligence? Has he revealed anything about embassy operations? Maria's throat is dry. She shakes her head. He's very careful, follows security protocols strictly. Perhaps too strictly, Mendez observes. A man with nothing to hide is usually more relaxed with his wife. Maria forces a smile. Or a man who respects his professional obligations. Mendez doesn't return the smile. Keep watching him, Maria. If Porter is more than he appears, we need to know. Soon. The revolution depends on patriots like you. Maria leaves Mendez's office feeling like she's been sentenced to death. The DGI is closing in on James. They may not have proof yet, but they're suspicious. And when they find that proof, and they will, James will be arrested, tortured for information, executed as a spy. And Maria's failure to report her discovery of the camera will be seen as complicity. She will be arrested alongside him, unless she acts first. Maria walks through the corridors of DGI headquarters, past offices where colleagues analyze intelligence and plan operations, past interrogation rooms where enemies of the state confess their crimes. This building has been her sanctuary, the physical embodiment of her purpose and identity. But today it feels like a prison. She thinks about James, alone in their apartment, perhaps photographing documents or preparing dead drops or whatever it is CIA officers do. Does he suspect she knows? Is he planning his own escape? Or does he genuinely believe his cover is intact, that his wife loves him too much to see the truth? Maria realizes she cannot go back to the apartment. Not yet. She needs time to think, to decide. She tells her secretary she's conducting field surveillance and leaves headquarters. Havana in August is sweltering, the heat pressing down like a physical weight. Maria walks without destination, through neighborhoods where children play in the streets and old men smoke cigars on stoops. The city that has been her home all her life now feels foreign, as if her personal crisis has altered the very landscape. She finds herself at the Cathedral of Havana, its Baroque facade imposing and serene. Maria is not particularly religious. The revolution has little patience for the church, but she feels drawn to this space. She enters the cool dimness, sits in a pew at the back, and allows herself to feel the full weight of her despair. She has spent 3 years living a lie. Or has she? That's the question that torments her. Was their marriage entirely James's operation, or did something real develop alongside the deception? Can love exist within a cover story? Can intimacy survive betrayal? Maria thinks about the nights James held her when she cried about her mother's death last year. The way he learned to cook her favorite meals. The morning he surprised her with flowers for no reason, except that he'd seen them and thought of her. The thousand small acts of care and attention that comprised their daily life. Were all of those calculated moves in a long-term intelligence operation? Or did James Porter, CIA officer, genuinely fall in love with his target? And does it matter? Even if James loves her, he has still used her, still lied to her, still put his mission above their marriage, still betrayed everything she believes in. But Maria knows she is guilty of the same crimes. She married James as part of her own intelligence operation. She has reported on him, monitored him, used their intimacy to gather information. She has lied to him every day about who she really is. They are both spies, both liars. Both trapped in a game neither can win. The only difference is that Maria's love became real, and she doesn't know if James's did. A priest moves through the cathedral, lighting candles. He nods to Maria but doesn't approach. She sits in the silence, watching the flickering flames, and makes her decision. She cannot betray James to the DGI, not because he deserves her protection, but because she cannot live with that choice. Cannot become the person who sends the man she loves to his death, regardless of his crimes. But she also cannot simply let him continue his operations, potentially compromising Cuban security, endangering her country. There is only one option. She must confront him. Tonight, she will tell James that she knows what he is. She will give him a chance to explain, to tell her if anything between them was real. And then she will give him 24 hours to leave Cuba, to disappear before the DGI closes in. It is a betrayal of her country. It will likely end her career, possibly her life, when the truth emerges. But it is the only choice Maria Castellanos can live with. She rises from the pew and walks out of the cathedral into the blazing afternoon. The sun is merciless, the heat overwhelming. Maria feels it burning away the last remnants of the woman she was this morning. By tonight, everything will be different. She returns to the apartment in the early evening. James is there, preparing dinner as if this is just another ordinary day. The smell of garlic and tomatoes fills the small kitchen. He looks up when she enters, smiles. "There you are. I was starting to worry." Maria sets down her bag, studies him. He looks so normal, so domestic. It's almost impossible to reconcile this man with the spy who has been photographing Soviet missile installations. They eat dinner together, making small talk about their days. James tells a funny story about a mix-up at the embassy. Maria laughs at the appropriate moments. The performance continues. After dinner, they wash dishes side by side as always. Their hands touch in the soapy water. James catches her fingers, brings them to his lips. Maria feels tears threatening. Not yet. She needs to maintain control a little longer. They move to the small living room. James pours rum, and they sit together on the sofa. The windows are open, letting in the evening breeze and the sounds of Havana at night. Music from a distant radio. Voices from the street below. The ordinary symphony of life continuing, indifferent to personal catastrophes. Maria takes a deep breath. She has rehearsed this moment all afternoon, but now that it's here, the words stick in her throat. "James," she begins, "we need to talk." He turns to her, concerned. "What's wrong?" "Everything." "Nothing. I don't know anymore." Maria stands, unable to sit still. She walks to the window, looks out at the darkening city. "James, who are you?" "Really?" A long silence. Then James's voice, careful. "I'm your husband." Maria turns to face him. "Are you? Or are you a CIA officer using our marriage as cover to conduct espionage operations against my country?" The words are out. The truth, stark and brutal, hanging in the air between them. James's face goes very still. His expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. A calculation, a decision being made. "Maria," he says slowly, "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't." Maria's voice is sharp. "Don't insult me by lying, not now." "I found the camera, James. I know what you are." Another silence, longer this time. Maria can see James processing, weighing options, deciding how to play this. Finally, he stands. His posture changes, becomes more alert. The easy domesticity falls away like a mask removed. When he speaks again, his voice is different. Harder. "How long have you known?" "Since last night, and you haven't reported me." "Why?" "Because I'm a fool," Maria says, her voice breaking. "Because despite everything, despite your lies and your betrayal, I love you. And I need to know if any of it was real. If you ever loved me, or if I was just an operation." James takes a step toward her. "Maria, it's complicated." "No," Maria cuts him off. "It's simple. Did you love me, ever? Or was I just a convenient Cuban intelligence officer you could use for access and cover?" James runs a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she's seen 1,000 times. "It started as an operation. I won't lie about that. I was assigned to cultivate you, to use the relationship for intelligence purposes. But Maria, it became real. You became real. I fell in love with you." "When?" Maria demands. "When did the operation end and the love begin? Or did they just coexist, two parallel truths you managed to compartmentalize?" James's face shows genuine anguish. "I don't know. Maybe there was never a clear line. Maybe I was lying to myself as much as to you. But what I feel for you is real, Maria. That's the truth." Maria laughs bitterly. "The truth? What a concept. Should I tell you my truth, James? I'm not a cultural ministry worker. I'm an intelligence officer with the DGI. I was assigned to monitor you from the beginning. Our entire relationship has been one long intelligence operation on both sides." James stares at her. "Your DGI?" Maria nods. "So we've been spying on each other this whole time. What a perfect marriage." The absurdity of it hits them both. Two intelligence officers, each using the other, each falling in love despite themselves, each trapped in a web of deception neither can escape. James sits down heavily. "What now?" "Now," Maria says, "I tell you that the DGI is closing in. They don't have proof yet, but they're building a case against several CIA officers at the embassy, including you. Within days, maybe hours, they'll make arrests. You need to leave Cuba. Tonight." James looks up at her. "You're warning me, helping me escape." "Why?" "Because I'm a fool," Maria repeats. "Because I can't send you to your death, even though you've betrayed me and my country. Because I need to believe that love means something, even in the middle of all this madness." James stands, crosses to her. He reaches for her hands, but Maria steps back. "Don't. If you touch me, I'll break. And I need to stay strong enough to see this through." James drops his hands. "Maria, come with me." "What?" "Come with me to America. We can start over. Away from all of this. Away from the intelligence services and the lies. We can have a real life together." Maria stares at him in disbelief. "You think I would defect? Betray my country, my beliefs, everything I am? For you?" James's voice is urgent. "For us. For the chance to be together without the lies. Maria, this crisis between our countries is escalating toward war. If it comes to that, we'll be on opposite sides. We'll lose each other anyway. But if we leave now together, we can save what we have." It's a tempting fantasy. Maria can almost see it. A life in America with James, free from the constant deception, the divided loyalties. A chance to be just a woman with the man she loves, rather than an intelligence officer married to an enemy spy. But it's impossible. "I can't," she says quietly. I can't abandon Cuba. This is my home, my people. The revolution, for all its flaws, is trying to build something better. I believe in that. I have to believe in that, or everything I've done, everything I've sacrificed means nothing. Then we're at an impasse, James says, because I can't stay here. Even if I wanted to, even if I abandon my mission, the DGI will arrest me. You've said so yourself, so this is goodbye. The finality of it crashes over Maria like a wave. This is goodbye. After 3 years of marriage, of shared life, of love real and fabricated, it ends here. Tonight, in this apartment where they built their impossible life together, James moves toward her again. This time Maria doesn't step back. He cups her face in his hands and she allows herself this last moment of contact. I love you, he says. Whatever else was a lie, that's true. I love you, Maria Castellanos, and I will regret losing you for the rest of my life. Maria closes her eyes, feels tears finally spilling over. I love you too. God help me, I love you too. They kiss and it tastes like goodbye, like salt and sorrow and the death of hope. When they pull apart, Maria forces herself to speak. You have until midnight. Pack what you need. I'll arrange for you to reach the American naval base at Guantanamo. After that, you're on your own. James nods. Thank you for this. For everything. Maria turns away, unable to watch him pack, unable to witness the dismantling of their life together. She goes to the window, looks out at Havana, her city, and tries to memorize this moment. The last moment before everything changes forever. Behind her, she hears James moving through the apartment, gathering his things. The sounds are unbearably ordinary. The zip of a bag, the rustle of clothes, the small noises of departure. Maria makes a phone call, speaking in code to a contact who owes her favors. Arrangements are made. A car will come at 11. It will take James to a safe house, then to the coast, then to a boat that will run the blockade to Guantanamo. It's risky but possible. James will have his chance to escape. At 10:30, they stand in the living room, facing each other across the wreckage of their marriage. James has one bag. Maria has her arms wrapped around herself, holding in the grief. There's so much I want to say, James begins. Don't, Maria interrupts. If you say it, I'll break. And I can't break yet. I have to stay strong enough to survive this. James nods. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out something small. He holds it out to her, his wedding ring. I can't take this with me, he says. It would raise questions, but I want you to have it, to remember that what we had was real. Maria takes the ring, closes her fist around it. The metal is warm from his body. She will keep this, she knows. Will carry it as evidence that once, in the midst of lies and betrayal, two people loved each other. A car horn sounds from the street below. James's ride. They move to the door. James pauses at the threshold, looks back at the apartment one last time. Then he looks at Maria. If things were different, if we lived in a different world. We would have been happy, Maria finishes. In that other world, we would have been very happy. James kisses her forehead, a gesture so tender it breaks her heart all over again. Then he's gone, walking down the stairs, his footsteps fading. Maria stands in the doorway, listening until she can't hear him anymore. Then she closes the door and leans against it, finally allowing herself to collapse. She slides down to the floor, the wedding ring clutched in her hand, and weeps. For James, for herself, for the life they might have had, for the innocence she's lost, for the woman she was before she discovered that love and loyalty could be irreconcilable. Maria Castellanos sits on the floor of her empty apartment and cries until there are no tears left. Then she stands, washes her face, and begins to prepare for what comes next. Because James Porter may be gone, but Maria's ordeal is just beginning. She has helped an enemy spy escape. When the DGI discovers this, and they will, she will face consequences. Interrogation, imprisonment, possibly execution. But Maria has made her choice. She has chosen love over loyalty, heart over duty. And she will face whatever comes with the knowledge that in the impossible circumstances of Cold War Havana, she remained human. She loved. She sacrificed. She chose. And that will have to be enough. The midnight air is thick and humid as Maria walks along the Malecon seawall, the famous promenade where Havana meets the sea. The waves crash against the stone with rhythmic violence, sending spray into the air. Maria stands at the wall, looking out at the dark water, and thinks about drowning. It would be easy to simply climb over and let the sea take her, to end this impossible situation before it destroys her completely. But Maria Castellanos is not ready to die. Not yet. She has one more thing to do. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out James's wedding ring. She holds it up to the moonlight, watching it gleam. This small circle of gold represents everything she's lost: her marriage, her innocence, her certainty about who she is and what she believes. Maria draws back her arm to throw the ring into the sea, to let it sink into the depths where no one will ever find it. But at the last moment she stops. She cannot do it, cannot erase this last evidence of what they had. Instead, she slips the ring onto a chain around her neck, tucking it beneath her blouse where it rests against her heart. Hidden, secret, like everything else in her life. Maria turns away from the sea and begins walking back toward the city. Tomorrow, she will go to DGI headquarters. She will tell Colonel Mendez that James Porter has fled, that he was a CIA officer, that she discovered his activities and he escaped before she could apprehend him. She will claim she was conducting her own investigation, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment to make an arrest. It's a thin story. Mendez will be suspicious. There will be questions, interrogations, investigations. Maria's career is over. She may face charges of negligence or worse, but she will survive. She has to believe she will survive, because somewhere in America, James Porter will be debriefed by the CIA. He will tell them about the Soviet missiles in Cuba, about the installations he photographed. His intelligence will contribute to the crisis that is building, the confrontation between superpowers that will bring the world to the brink of nuclear war. In October, just weeks from now, President Kennedy will address the nation about Soviet missiles in Cuba. The world will hold its breath for 13 days as America and the Soviet Union face off over this island. And somehow, impossibly, cooler heads will prevail. The missiles will be removed. War will be averted. Humanity will step back from the abyss. Maria doesn't know this yet, standing on the Malecon in August. She doesn't know that the photographs James took, the intelligence he gathered using their marriage as cover, will be part of the evidence that forces the crisis into the open. She doesn't know that in some small way her choice tonight to let him escape may have influenced the course of history. She only knows that she loved a spy, and he loved her back, and it wasn't enough. Love is never enough when the world is tearing itself apart. Maria walks through the dark streets of Havana, past revolutionary slogans and Soviet propaganda, past the remnants of American influence and the promises of socialist utopia. She walks through the city that is her home and her prison, and she carries James's ring against her heart. In the years to come, Maria Castellanos will remain in Cuba. She will face investigation but avoid prosecution, her previous loyalty and service buying her a second chance. She will continue working for the DGI, though never again with the same certainty. the same faith. She will watch as the revolution hardens, as the idealism of the early years gives way to the grim realities of authoritarian rule. She will grow old in Havana, never marrying again, never quite trusting anyone the way she trusted James. And every night before she sleeps, she will touch the ring she wears on a chain around her neck. She will remember the American spy who was her husband. She will wonder if he thinks of her, wherever he is. She will ask herself if she made the right choice, knowing there is no answer that will ease her conscience. James Porter will return to America, will be debriefed and reassigned. He will provide valuable intelligence about Soviet operations in Cuba. He will be decorated for his service, though the details will remain classified for decades. He will eventually retire from the CIA, will live quietly in Virginia, will never speak publicly about his time in Havana. But he will keep a photograph of Maria, hidden in a drawer, and sometimes he will take it out and study her face. He will remember the Cuban intelligence officer who let him escape when she should have turned him in. He will wonder if she survived the aftermath of his departure. He will carry his own guilt and his own impossible love through the rest of his life. Two spies, two lovers, two people caught in the machinery of history, trying to find something human in the midst of inhuman circumstances. Their story is one of thousands from the Cold War, stories of betrayal and loyalty, of love and duty, of choices made in the darkness that echo through the decades. On August 22, 1962, Maria Castellanos discovered that her husband was a spy. She made a choice that night that would haunt her forever, but it was her choice. In a world that sought to control every aspect of her life, to dictate her beliefs and her loyalties, Maria chose love. She chose to remain human. And in the end, perhaps that is the only victory possible in a Cold War. Not the triumph of one ideology over another, not the victory of one superpower over its rival, but the small, desperate, doomed attempt to preserve humanity in the face of forces that would reduce us all to pawns in their games. Maria Castellanos stands on the Malecon in the midnight hour, the sea crashing behind her, the city sleeping before her. She has lost everything and saved nothing, but she has loved, and she has chosen, and she will survive. The sun will rise on August 23rd. The crisis will build. The world will teeter on the edge of annihilation. But Maria Castellanos will still be here, carrying her secrets and her sorrows, bearing witness to history, refusing to surrender the last remnants of her humanity to the cold logic of espionage and ideology. This is her story. This is the price of love in a time of war. This is what it means to be human when the world demands you be a weapon. And somewhere in America, James Porter stands at a window, looking toward the South, toward Cuba, toward the woman he loved and betrayed and lost. He touches his bare ring finger and remembers. They both remember. And in remembering, they keep alive something that the Cold War tried to kill. Hope. Love. The belief that even in the darkest times, even when nations stand ready to destroy each other, individual human hearts can still choose connection over conflict. It's a small thing, a fragile thing, but it's all they have, and it will have to be enough.